We're good, man. Yo, welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Live Before Lock. Sorry for the tardiness. The good news is I'm here. The bad news is I think for the first time ever, I forgot what time the show was. Jordan hit me up like 5 minutes ago asking where I was, and I said, well, I don't know. I'm home. I totally forgot. By the way, Matt Bellman hanging out today. Matt Gajewski has no power, so just a shit show all around. But couldn't find a better fill-in than Matt Bellman. Does a fantastic job all the time. Happy to have him with us. Dude, I totally forgot that I knew there were two games. I just forgot one of them was at 7:30 tonight. So we're here. We're good. We're going to talk some football.
Yeah, man, excited to be back on here with you. Been a minute since we did a show together. This two-game thing, I think, is going to be more frequent this year. I know it's next week also.
And like 3 weeks. The 3 of the next 4 weeks.
I don't know how I feel about it. I like two-game slates more than showdown slates, but I almost feel like two-game slates are, I don't know. They're still really small, and I kind of like the old school part of me loves just one Monday Night Football game, but I guess the more football, the merrier. How do you feel about it?
I love the 2-game slates. I if I could, I would have every single week just do double headers. I'm not sure I'd be able to stay up for it if they were doing like East Coast, West Coast double headers. Like these days, I'm not making it till like 1:15 because, you wouldn't start that game till 10. They've done that before, by the way, plenty of times in the past where it's, a 7 o'clock and then a 10 o'clock, which is sweet. Yeah, I don't think that's happening these days. Anyway, we got 2 games to talk about. Actually, a really fun slate. Bills at home, 4.5, 5-point favorites. This line has definitely moved towards Jacksonville quite a bit over the last couple of days. And then Cincinnati and the Commanders. This one is just held at 7.5 pretty much everywhere, Matt. Cincinnati comes into this game 0-2. Jacksonville comes into that Bills game or into Buffalo 0-2. That has now moved to 4, by the way. That has now moved to 4. It was 5.5, and I'm not saying it's going through, significant key numbers here, but still 5.5 to 4. Yeah, this, we should go just position by position here and break it down. Probably the best way to do it. Also, more than anything, I talked to Gajewski about this on the strategy show today too. More so than just talking about the plays, what about the ways to be different? Because you have to think that there's going to be a lot of duped spots today.
Especially with how pricing is. Jamar Chase is going to be 85% owned, and that's like projected to be in the big field tourneys. So smaller field, he's going to be even higher. It's basically the type of slate where you can just play whoever you want. And there aren't like that many studs to choose from. So I'm with you. Definitely going to see a lot of dupes, which on a 2-game slate happens. And I think that there are certainly plenty of ways to get different. It's just how different do you want to get that, that type of deal.
Well, let's see how different we can get. Before we start, though, happy to have you guys with us. If you don't mind, atone for your sins this morning. Hit that this afternoon, this evening. Hit that thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We had the craziest thing yesterday, Matt, on the Sunday Live Before Lock. Did you see the tweet about the auto-generated chat recap? Did you happen to see that?
Now that you mention it, was it something about Jesus or something about? Yeah. Okay, I saw it.
So we were doing the whole atone for your sins bit. And
okay, now it makes sense.
This lady was like, hey, I'm in the Mennonite church in Kansas, but I'm watching it from my office so I can stream the show. And all like right as it is the prototypical, it is the ultimate level of atonement on a Stochastic show, right? So then Jordan sends this to me, and it was chat summary, auto-generated experiment, quality may vary. Viewers discuss the Jesus-like qualities of Stochastic host Ben in a recent story involving a church lady and a donation. That's what they got out of everything. So it was a good day, but I guess it's time to dive in. Let's make it happen. It was so good. But yeah, all right. So let's start. Obi-Wan should be sinning with us. Yeah, it's the sin bin, as you guys termed it. Let's talk quarterbacks first. Matt was very low on Josh Allen this morning. And a lot of that happened because, and I want to give you an idea where he was. I'll tell you where I am, obviously. But a lot of that was just because they're running the football a lot more. Ever since the OC switch, like midway through last season, maybe second half of last season, running the ball a lot more. Allen isn't running as much anymore either. And at the time, we have Burrow projected higher and we have him with more ownership than Josh Allen. How are you sorting through these guys? I won't even say at the top because there's not really a top. It's Joe Burrow below Josh Allen, who's way more expensive than everyone else, then Jayden Daniels, who's a comparable price to Joe Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence at 5,700. That's what we've got tonight.
So it's interesting with Allen for me because he's expensive and they are running the ball a lot more. They've shown that since they fired Dorsey. He still does have the highest chance of being optimal of any QB on the slate, slightly higher than Burrow at 34%. But when I look at that number, I'm like, damn, only 34% on a 2-game slate for Josh Allen. That's crazy considering the amount of rushing and passing upside he's had in years past. I'm kind of with the line movement in that game. I think Jacksonville keeps this game close, which has me higher on Josh Allen than it sounds like the other Matt was. But I get it. Like, he's still going to be highly owned and he is very expensive with other studs to spend up on. Like, Jamar Chase is certainly a priority on paper over Josh Allen, but I think that like Josh Allen type builds are going to be a little bit different because of his price tag. So I get it, but I do like him here. I mean, at any moment he could break any slate he's on, certainly a small 2-gamer.
So would you put Allen as your number one?
From like obviously from a raw points perspective, from me, for a tournament perspective, it's so hard with their projection and him and Burrow is so close.
It really is.
I can't say that I like him over Burrow because of that, but I'm going to say that my favorite quarterback for tournaments is Trevor Lawrence. A lot of that is ownership. The price, I wish it were a bigger slate, but on a bigger slate, I wouldn't be playing him. He's really cheap. He's one of the highest leveraged plays on the board. Only a 12% chance of being optimal, but a little bit under 10% ownership. That offense, that team hasn't looked great to start the year, but we've seen it time and time again with the NFL. Like, it's almost like the beginning of the NFL season plays out like MLB. You just never know what you're going to see. Take the first 3 weeks, for example. It goes up, it goes down, it goes back up. Not going to be surprised if Jacksonville plays really, really well in this spot. We saw Arizona almost beat Buffalo in this spot a couple weeks ago. So I like Trevor Lawrence in tournaments considering his low ownership.
I have no issues with it, really. Look, if Jacksonville has played poorly through the first 2 weeks, but the funny thing about this Jacksonville team is that even when you look at these games, it turns out that while they're 0-2, it's not like they've been blown out in either of these, right? It was a 13-18 game against Cleveland. They should have won, but because Deshaun Watson stinks, but and he proved it yesterday. Yet somehow from a DFS perspective, he was fine. Amari got there for sure. Missed out on the 100-yard ladder though. But 3-point loss to Miami in another game that Doug Peterson just, I don't know. I don't know what happened. His brain misfired. He short-circuited or something. Just some terrible decisions late in that game from Doug Peterson. It's really uncharacteristic. So what's up?
I was going to say also that ETN fumble. That doesn't happen. They probably win that game.
Yeah, they should have won that game. Miami looked like shit that game. Absolutely. Let's be honest. Before Tua got hurt, Tua looked horrible in that Buffalo game. You know what I mean? He had terrible interceptions, terrible play. He looked horrible. But that's besides the point. What I'm saying is their offense is stalled out. They never should have named it Trevor Bank Arena. That was the biggest mistake they could have made. I mean, how idiotic is that?
So dumb.
Why are we acting like this is Patrick Mahomes? You know, this is a bad decision, but whatever. Again, besides the point, I can see where you're going with here. I don't really think Buffalo's defense has been tested yet. They have the pass rush, which is clearly what forced Tua into those mistakes last game. And Kyler Murray and company really were hanging for a while until it kind of fell apart late in that Lawrence does have some legs as well. He had a 33-yard rush, 45 yards rushing last week. I get where you're going here. I mean, look, do I like Burrow the best? Obviously I do. Matt, I don't know if we've done NFL shows together, but my motto is basically, if you're playing the Commanders, I'm playing whoever it is, no matter what. That's just the way until they fix this, if they can, not sure they can with the personnel they have. Until they can, I'm just going to essentially load up on everyone from a DFS and betting perspective against the Commanders and not really think twice about it. But I do see where you're going with Lawrence here. I like ETN too as well, though, because I think Buffalo's biggest weakness is that run game.
Same. I think you could do a Jags onslaught. And for me, full disclosure, I think Burrow is the best quarterback on the slate. The Bengals are by far the best team to attack on this slate because of the Commanders' defense, but the field knows that too.
Yep.
So I'd almost like the Bengals more on a main slate where just no team gets that much ownership. So the Bengals would be owned, but wouldn't be crazy chalk because no team ever is that. But on this slate, they will be. So I might be silly in this approach, but almost taking an MLB-like approach to this slate on a 2-gamer where we haven't really seen a ton of any of these teams yet. Things can certainly play out much differently than the field expects.
No, I get where you're going. It's a 2-game slate. And it's not like a 2-game slate where you're going, yeah, I think Tommy DeVito is viable today, right? Like, oh yeah.
Right.
Or some of these other guys that are just, they get these spot starts. Like, oh yeah, I really like Malik Willis quite a bit because he's unowned. We have Trevor Lawrence at around 10%. It does make sense. Because maybe that offense isn't as bad as we've seen. And I don't think they can possibly be that bad. Christian Kirk's good. Brian Thomas is sick. Like, that guy's going to be awesome. Maybe you're on to something here. But I would imagine Trevor Lawrence isn't going to dictate how your day goes either.
No. And I think that point you made is a good one, man. Like, it's just not like say whatever you want about Trevor Lawrence. He's not a superstar QB. Clearly he hasn't shown that, but he's certainly better than a lot of the journeymen we've seen that I'm willing to play in spots. And for me, it's like, if he's the highest scoring QB on the slate, like, I don't think that's a shocking outcome to anyone, or should be at least.
Yeah. Nick said, this just proves this guy doesn't know much about football. Tua didn't look great, but 2 of those 3 picks were on the wide receiver. Come on, dude. Tua didn't look good at all. But no, you're right. I don't know anything about football. Not a thing, Nick. Not a thing. I'll tell you this much. Tua doesn't know how to slide. Anyway, talking about the rest of these quarterbacks, though, Jayden Daniels is the one where I don't have a lot of confidence in him. Amazingly, he's averaging 7.7 yards per attempt, but he can't get anything downfield, right? That's been pretty evident thus far. Jayden Daniels has really struggled to get anything downfield whatsoever. You look at deep attempts this season in 2 weeks, not to say that he's had to do a ton of this, particularly not against the Giants, but 2 weeks on the season, so far he's attempted 3. He has 1 completion. That was 21 yards to Zach Ertz. Terry McLaurin and him have not been able to find any chemistry whatsoever. I don't know what's going on there. And when he senses pressure, it gets ugly quick. They made like 6 red zone trips against the Giants, but I think that's more an indictment on the Giants than anything else. And then they stalled out in the red zone every time, kicked 7 field goals for the win. I think it's a tough spot, but I also could see this as one of these games where if they get behind early, Jayden Daniels might have 80 rushing yards, Matt. And I don't want to sleep on that. Like, he might just take off a lot.
Yeah, you literally took the words out of my brain. Garbage time is a hell of a drug. And Jayden Daniels is kind of the perfect garbage time quarterback, where he's just going to accumulate stats at the end of the game when his team's probably losing, which the Commanders will be a lot. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you. As far as like boom bust, ceiling, floor, I think he's got probably the lowest floor on the slate. Points per dollar, highest ceiling. I don't think that's a question. Just because of that rushing upside, if he happens to find the box a couple times, you're going to want him on your squad. I don't trust this offense, but 2-game slate, like he might just be good enough on his own where he's worth, playing in a main lineup.
Would you? Okay, so if you're making these builds, then what do Jayden Daniels builds look like, right? That's kind of what we got to get. That's what we got to drill down to.
Uh,
I want to play Loughran, but I know it's only 2 games, Matt, and I totally agree with you that a lot of times, I wouldn't say take the first 2 games, 2 weeks of the season entirely with a grain of salt. Like we're certainly learning things, right? We're going to learn things every single week, but even a full season is a small sample size. What I can say though is that Jayden Daniel connection with Loughran to me is amplified because he is still a rookie. Like we saw Caleb Williams yesterday again. First of all, the guy doesn't have any time to pass. He doesn't have any time to pass, but he's still super green. And I think similar with McDaniels, he's completing a lot of his passes, but they're not necessarily they're not passes that are driving them down the field into the end zone. So how do you do it? Do you skinny stack him? Would you run him naked in any lineups? What would you do here?
So I was thinking about that as you were talking about like Daniels and rushing for 80 yards. Now, this answer depends on what type of contest you're playing. In like a single entry, I wouldn't do this, but I think on this type of slate in like the large field, whatever, 500, 300K to first, I think you could really stack the Bengals and then use Daniels instead of Burrow in that lineup. Maybe use Eckler with him because you're kind of playing it like the Bengals get up. The Bengals get up. A lot of times it's going to be through Chase and Higgins or whoever you use from them. But then all of a sudden, and Burrow's going to be good in that situation, no doubt. But if Daniels is a little bit better because he rushes for 110 yards and a touchdown and throws for another touchdown, like that's a real, I don't want to say it's an easy way to get unique. Is it going to play out that way often? No, but I don't think it's that like insane to think that it plays out like that a decent amount of times.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It sounds wild, but I think Ertz might be my favorite guy to stack him with. You know why? First of all, the tight end position. If you guys are just building lineups right now, you can essentially do whatever you want. Leaving salary is a real thing today.
Real thing.
Yeah. Like I was telling Matt this morning, I hand built, I was just laying in bed last night watching the game, the Sunday night football game. I was like, oh, let me take a look at this slate. I'm excited for a doubleheader. So I just started hand building a lineup out using the single lineup sim that we have over on Stochastic. And I built one and I'm like, man, I really like this. I look up, I have 1,800 left over. I was like, I don't think I'm going to touch anything.
I think to answer your first question about like getting different on this type of slate, on this slate in particular, it's that leaving salary on the table because it's not only that it's viable here, but also a lot of the players are just cheap on this slate. Like even a guy like Chase, who's the highest projected player, he's only 7,500. There just aren't really expensive players to even spend up on. So I don't think you have to leave salary, but I totally think it's viable. And if I were playing 150 in, that big $20, I would definitely be leaving salary in a lot of my lineups.
Hey, by the way, I'm just getting lineups in now because I forgot that the game started at 7:30. And let me see here. I have some Trevor Lawrence. Now I'm using the Sims and I don't have a ton of Trevor Lawrence, but here's the funny thing, Matt. A lot of the top simmed ROI lineups that I have, even though I only have around 10% Lawrence, a lot of the top lineups that sim out in the Sims tool are Trevor Lawrence lineups. So
I love that.
So it's basically saying like low probability lineups, but if it hits, that's exactly what it's saying, right? Like the leverage you're getting on Lawrence, but also you don't want to have 60% of him either.
Yeah, totally. That's kind of what I expected, but good that confirms that. And I'm with it as part of like that, what I said earlier about looking at this slate kind of in an MLB like landscape is the leaving salary. And like I said, I'm not projecting Lawrence to be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate. But like I said earlier as well, it wouldn't be crazy. And I think there's a lot of that. I mean, early season NFL, there's a lot of that anyways. So on a 2-game slate, I think the variance is just even bigger.
What do you think at running back? where and I think we don't really need to spend much time here elsewhere, right? I mean, Jayden Daniels in play, Burrow's in play. They're all four of these guys are in play. It's just the only reason I think I'm getting to less. Jordan, do me a favor, go to quarterbacks. I want to see how much Allen we're getting. Yeah, like see, Matt, we're getting less Allen than Lawrence, Burrow, and Daniels on this slate, just because I think it's the price. I think it's the price and the projection relative to these other guys.
Totally. Yeah,
We have Jayden. I'm sorry, but we have Jayden Daniels projected for about 1.7 less than Allen, and we have Burrow projected for 0.02 more than Allen. So that, like, if you're going by those projections, if you're going by different projections, it could look different. But by those projections, Allen, you're going to get some for sure, especially given his
not a
ceiling,
lot.
but not a ton, I don't think.
No, I mean, the only reason you might get more on this slate is because it's easy to fit him. But given the projections, it's hard to justify why you would even want more, unless you just want to be different, which is totally viable as well.
Yep. Michael asked Dave, which QB has the highest simmed ROI on FanDuel? Pretty please. Jordan, can you run it? Yeah, run a FanDuel Sims for the fellas, and then go to player ROI and sort by quarterback. And we'll see what that looks like. Connor, what's up, brother? $5 super chat. Gajewski or Strange straight up a tight end. Thanks, fellas. It's such a toss-up to me, Matt. A lot of whether I'm playing Gajewski or Strange is going to be based on what my lineup and what my quarterback and stack looks like.
Totally. I think that they match up. And I know that the Jaguars called up a tight end from their practice squad, which, again, doesn't make me like Strange anymore. I'll just say that.
That is a very fair point. Yeah, it's DeGuara, right? They brought DeGuara up.
Yeah, DeGuara, thank you. The name had slipped my mind. But again, like, the margins are slim for guys like this, so it's like, do I know that DeGuara is going to play at all? No, but like, it's still Brett Strange. You know what I mean? I don't expect big things from him anyways.
Yeah, good point. I'm trying to see so last week, Strange played 68% of snaps with Ingram out. Luke Farrell played 47% of snaps, but Farrell was mostly blocking. So, there's that. DeGuara never really was used much as a pass catcher, and it was Green Bay, I believe, right? When he was in Green Bay. Never saw much of him used at all. Yeah, I think it was Green Bay.
It was.
Yeah. So just looking at last week with Evan Ingram out, pulling up the route participation here. Yeah, Luke Farrell ran 5 routes. Brenton Strange ran 26. To put that, to compare that for you guys, Brian Thomas 30, Gabe Davis 34, Christian Kirk 32. So, yeah, I mean, he was up there. He probably ran a route on like 75% of dropbacks, which isn't bad at all. I'm not too worried about DeGuara. Yeah, you could make the same argument that, now Gajewski has to deal with not only Chase and Yosivas, but also with T. Higgins now that he's back. So, look, it's a shitty position. The real question is, do you want to pay up for Dalton Kincaid or just get cheap? And I'm perfectly fine going to Ertz, Gajewski, Strange, those type of guys.
Same. Also, this guy Eric All in Cincinnati too, eating up some usage and targets that like Gajewski could potentially not get. So, yeah, very murky tight end spot or tight end position. And I'll say this about Kincaid, like, on paper, he's by far the best option, but it's not like he's been amazing this year. So I think that's another way to like get real different, not real different, but to just make sure you're contrarian if that's the type of way you want to play. Build a lineup, and like if it's using full salary with someone like Kincaid, just take him out and use any other tight end. Because Kincaid's going to be really popular because he's easy to fit and there's no other good pivots.
Yeah, this is true. This is very true. Oh, sweet. I can't read it, Jordan. Can you read off are you at player ROI? Well, you can find player ROI on the exposure. It's probably Jayden Daniels. Is it? No, the highest. Okay, and the lowest has to be Josh Allen. Okay, yeah, I figured. Interesting. I'm not totally shocked by that though, Matt.
Same.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't. All right. So talk about running backs at the top. If you were to have to kind of walk through this with the four starting running backs for each team, Travis Etienne, James Cook, Brian Robinson Jr., Zach Moss, who do you think, if you had to rank them, has the least risk of getting, vultured at the goal lines, getting volume? Like, I think eventually Chase Brown, I'm a big Chase Brown truther over here. I think eventually Chase Brown is going to have a much larger role in this offense. Full disclosure, I'll be taking some shots on that tonight on a 2-game slate, get a little weird, get a little bit overweight to Chase Brown and see what happens. Cause I think he's actually good and efficient, and maybe they decide to use him. But how do you break these guys down from an opportunity standpoint?
I think from that aspect, I don't even think it's a question. It's Travis Etienne and then everyone else. Like, I think you could say Cook also, but I kind of like what I've seen from Ray Davis. I know Cook scored the touchdowns last week, but I think for me, the guy most secure in his role and like the number one back status is Etienne. Now, he's not Jonathan Taylor or one of these other guys that plays like 100% of the snaps. They've got Bigsby back tonight. I know Dearness Johnson had crept in there a little bit, but I think you feel safest with Etienne. Do you agree?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I mean, James Cook, obviously, I think is up there as well. I think here's the thing. It's almost a trick question, because with as much as I think Chase Brown is viable tonight because it's a 2-game slate, there's no way I'd be playing Chase Brown on a main slate. It wouldn't be worth it. And I'd probably be considering Zach Moss. Like the leverage there wouldn't make sense. But
right.
Like on a 12-game slate, that's not. But hell, if you got 12 from Chase Brown today, that could be a huge deal.
If he beats Moss,
exactly.
Whatever it is.
Exactly. Whereas on a main slate, if he beats Moss, it's probably like one has 12, one has 10.
Great. Yeah. No one played either.
Exactly. But I'm saying on a main slate, I'd probably be considering Moss in this game. So
I get it.
I still think Moss looks really good today. Really good. Do you think they can coexist in the same lineup? The problem I have is how bad that Washington secondary is.
Definitely, especially on a 2-game slate, like full Bengals onslaught, no other team does that much of anything. Like, do I think it's the likeliest outcome? No. But yeah, if the Bengals secondary ends up playing as bad as they've shown tonight, maybe they just get tackled at the 5 multiple times and Brown and Moss each get 2 touchdowns. Like, certainly plausible. And, the DBs and the secondary being so bad, I don't think that necessarily hurts the running backs here, because I just think it means Cincinnati's going to move the ball more.
By the way, Matt, now officially over 24 hours since I have last hit the vape.
Wow. What's up there? Is that
I'm just trying to stop, man. I haven't smoked cigarettes in 3 years when my kid was born. And then you start this, and by God, that thing is delicious. You forget all about smokes because you sit in the basement and rip it all day. I'm telling you, it is so much tougher than cigarettes, especially in the winter. You don't have to go outside. Oh man, but we're officially 1 day in, fully not touching it. It's difficult. It's tough.
I respect that. Hopefully you can make it for as long as you want, just kind of a test yourself type of thing, or you just want to quit for good.
Oh no, we went a day. I'm done. I'm joking. Yeah, I'm gonna try here. We're gonna try. We've gotten a ton of encouragement from the people in chat as well. Hitting me up on Twitter with tips and all this stuff. It doesn't go unnoticed. I appreciate you guys. Are there backup running backs that are viable today?
Like viable in a main lineup?
Like, okay, so
no. Go ahead.
Like Eckler, Bigsby.
Oh.
I mean, I think Brown's viable just because he's actually good. Like, I think he's good. So maybe limited touches. If you go back and look towards the end of last year, it was Jake Browning in there. Mixon was still healthy. And Chase Brown had some really big games just as a pass catcher. He can break loose. Washington can't tackle for shit. So I think there's something there. It just sucks that he's not really getting the opportunities. But from a, Ray Davis, I'm not going there. I'm not going to Ty Johnson. Maybe Ray Davis vultures a touchdown, but I'm still not sure that would be enough because Etienne's in a good spot. Cook's in the same spot as Ray Davis. Zach Moss is in a great spot. Even Brian Robinson. If you just assume, Matt, let's just say this game stays closer than we think. It's Monday Night Football. And fuck if we know, this whole season so far has, like that Carolina game yesterday, the Rams winning outright against the 49ers, Niners just collapsing late. The Saints in week 2. I could go on, but the show would be over by the time I get done talking about 6-7 point dog upsets on the money line. So not even just ATS. But if the game stays close, Brian Robinson's against a bad Bengals run defense, he's probably getting 20 total touches.
Yeah, like imagine Washington wins this game, which is something that a lot of DFS lineups aren't going to consider, at least to the rate in which they probably do win this game. So, yeah, like on paper, Brian Robinson doesn't look like a great play. I like Austin Eckler more at their respective prices. And I do think that Washington, I do, just because I think this is a game where Washington's trailing and, he's going to be the guy that's catching more balls. I know he's dusty at this point, but I'm still kind of an Eckler stan. So, yeah, I think I like him more because I do think that Washington's trailing in this game. If they're not, though, I think it's going to be a lot of Brian Robinson.
The problem I keep running into, though, is even if they're not trailing, Robinson's run 29 routes to Eckler's 32 on the season. He has 6 targets to Eckler's 7. I still think Eckler's a better pass catcher, don't get me wrong. But it's not like Brian Robinson is only a 2-down back. They are using him in passing downs almost as much as Eckler.
Yeah, don't like to see that. I mean, certainly don't like to see that, of course, if you're playing Eckler. But again, I know that last week they really weren't in like a trailing game script. The week before they played, the week before they were, and I know Eckler, I think, caught a couple more balls in that game. I could be mistaken, but yeah, I mean, that's certainly a concern. And maybe it just makes you like Robinson more no matter what.
I know.
He is going to be a significantly higher owned, though, and is more expensive. So the field sees it that way as well.
Yeah, almost made. Don't move to vaping. Don't do it. And by the way, I'm talking about the nicotine vape, right? I didn't move to a weed vape to quit smoking cigarettes. Chris Williams, it's that time again. Thank you for the super chat, brother. I may not be able to gift, but I can atone. Atone, folks. Bring yourself some good karma. Hell yeah. Yeah, apparently you just can't gift memberships. Jordan, is this a bug on YouTube's end? It must be, right?
Yeah, I've looked into it, and I didn't see anything that I could change for the gifting. So I'm going to see if we can get it sorted this week, maybe.
Okay. That'd be nice. Because Chris is probably losing his mind over there. All right. Any other backups? Anybody else, Matt, that you think is viable?
Like, not to the extent of like an Eckler or Chase Brown, but Ray Davis, if you're playing this slate, like Baltimore or like Buffalo's just going to roll. He's gotten some work, got 9 carries last game. I think I know that was a game that Buffalo was up. If it's the same type of game script, he was a monster in college at Vanderbilt and then Kentucky for those college football DFS players. And it looks like they like him here. Obviously not going to touch James Cook's workload, but as a backup at 4,300 on a slate to get different, don't hate it.
Brandon Katz, the future teller. That's a dumb take by Dave. Washington's going to be playing from behind. They won't be able to run a lot. Oh my God. Your insight is unmatched, Brandon Katz. For that, we appreciate you and thank you. We'll never be able to repay you for such unbelievable insight. Yeah, obviously they should be playing from behind, but it's a 2-game slate and you don't know what's going to happen. Plus this Bengals team, I never know what's going to be happening with this Bengals team ever, right? Like they're the slowest starting team we've seen. Obviously we like Bengals. I have 4-man Burrow stacks everywhere. Ryan Nelson, Laffy, how about Jacksonville onslaught lineups? Are you playing them tonight? I don't think it's crazy. I mean, obviously I like the onslaught Cincinnati lineups more, Matt. but I'm
So
not.
does everyone.
That's exactly. I'm not. Again, if we're just talking about like what has happened through the first 3 weeks of the season now, like yesterday, you saw, like, imagine if the Raiders Carolina game was on this slate and you had a Dalton, Thielen, Deontay Johnson, Chuba Hubbard stack, Matt. Going into it, everyone would be like, that's idiotic. And then it would have won everything.
Well, I'll say this. I played one lineup yesterday and had a Dalton, Thielen, Deontay Johnson stack and did not win everything. So there's that. But you have to mess up in a lot of.
This is a two game slate.
Oh my God, yes. No, but I also made a tremendous amount of stakes other than that. So I should have won everything. I just
is that what you played? All
yeah.
right. Nice.
It is.
Very nice. Yeah. I mean, what an indictment on Bryce Young, huh? Holy shit.
I mean, the same exact thing happened last year when Dalton came into that game against Seattle, threw for like 360, looked really, really good. And the Raiders, I thought it was a similar type matchup. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, here's my question about the Jacksonville onslaught, which I'm glad we're talking about it. Who do you use? Like, how do you distinguish and separate their wide receivers? I like Thomas the most, but they're all priced so similarly for a reason. I'm talking about Thomas, Kirk, and Davis. There's reasons to like and not like all of them.
Yeah, I don't really think you need to. I don't even know if you need to differentiate like that. It's just pretty much not dart throwing, but Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, even Strange at that price point, and Travis Etienne in those stacks is viable too. He can catch passes. I don't think it's anything. I don't think you have to be looking at it like I won't play this guy in the stacks. I'm willing to play. If you're going with the onslaught, then, you know, if you're talking like QB +3, Etienne, Kirk, Thomas, Etienne, Kirk, Davis, I don't really think it matters. I don't know how to differentiate them if we're being completely honest. I think the best one out there is going to be Brian Thomas Jr. from a talent level. But I also don't think Christian Kirk is going to have -1 yards on 1 reception every week either.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And that's kind of where I was at as well. Like, it's impossible to distinguish between them right now. We just haven't seen enough of this core together.
We haven't. And I don't know what to make of it. But I think we could both agree that their offense probably isn't as bad as it looked through the first couple of weeks. If it is today, then maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and revisit this. Like, if they score 10 points today or 13 points again today, and Trevor Lawrence looks lost, then yeah, maybe it's a real problem. But we only have 2 weeks to go off of. And in the past, we've seen that this team can move the football.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Like, they beat Buffalo last year. I think that game was in London, but they still won this game last year. I mean, you mentioned it, the amount of upsets for 6.5, or I can't remember the exact numbers, but like 6 to 8 point spreads that have happened so far this year. Not just ATS, but actual underdogs winning has been preposterous this year. So no reason why it couldn't continue tonight.
Yeah. Wide receivers, looking at the top, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I mean, I guess really how Jamar Chase is the best play on the slate, in my opinion. Okay. But what about T. Higgins?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like best play on the slate, I think that is definitely Chase at his price point in this matchup. I mean, if he were this price on a main slate in this spot, he'd be like 50% owned. So it just makes sense that he's going to be, it's almost like he's being treated as a free square here. Hard to get away from him, considering the context of the slate. There aren't a ton of expensive players, et cetera, et cetera. T. Higgins, like, would be an interesting pivot in my mind, but he's already getting so much ownership. And like, I get it, certainly in Bengals onslaught stacks or pivoting from Chase to Higgins. I don't love it though. I know Higgins is 100%, but hammies always worry me. It's his first game. You know, I like Higgins a lot as a wide receiver. So if he goes up and puts, 120 with 2 touchdowns, I'm not going to be surprised. I'm just not sure I love him at that ownership tonight.
I don't love him either, but I'm just going to have so much of him because of how much Burrow I have. He's
Yeah, it makes
basically just
sense.
coming along for the ride for me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, and that makes a lot of sense because that team, and we've seen it in the past, is a pretty concentrated route tree. Like it's Chase, it's Higgins, and then it's like everyone else, and they don't even have Boyd anymore. So like maybe Yoshivas, like I think he's still sneaky here. He probably gets really slept on because of Higgins's return, but he's good. I could see him being sneaky here.
Yeah, Matt was talking about that this morning. I don't disagree. I think that he could certainly get some work. It's funny too because man, I was using our tools over on OddsShopper, the portfolio EV tools that gives you plus EV plays, spots that, you know, where books are just way off from the rest of the market. And right as the Yosivas popped up on Caesars, it was 18.5. And I slammed it for 2 units and they pulled it. And then it came back up at 23.5, like 30 seconds later. There's some real opportunities out there to jump on. Look, it's not a great prop, 23.5 yards. That's what it was last time I looked. But still, you're not paying an arm and a leg for this guy. He's also what? Like, what if Higgins is still rusty and they say he's not limited, but he is, you know, he plays 60% of snaps and not 100 or not 90. Would you be, I wouldn't be shocked if Higgins is out there for like 65% of snaps.
No, not even a little bit. I mean, especially if this is a game they get up on, certainly the type of guy that could be taken out a little bit earlier than others. Again, like if he were actually sneaky on this slate, I would like him, but he's not because his price tag's so cheap and because a lot of people are just playing Burrow. So yeah, I don't like him as much as I probably should, I think is the best way to put it.
What, Miss Unic, what's up? Would you have a problem with having 2 running backs from Washington? Yeah, I don't love that. I'm not huge on that. I think and here's why, because Jayden Daniels is a mobile quarterback and it seems tough for me, Matt, where that he's going to get there, that Robinson and Eckler both get there with a mobile quarterback in Jayden Daniels. That seems like a problem.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the type of lineup you're playing in like the big $20 and, you know, hoping for miracles. Like, again, same thing I talked about with Cincinnati. Somehow they both score, or Robinson scores 2 touchdowns, but Eckler catches 10 balls. You know, not likely, but I mean, weirder shit has happened. So I'm with you. I don't generally like it.
Lappy, help a brother out on the free month for the Hall of Fame. Just email us, man. If you made it, email us. It's support at stochastic.com. If you're not rocking the avatar, by the way, you still got 10 minutes to throw that in there and make your life a whole lot sweeter when you win. Stochastic.com/HOF. Literally just use one of those, grab it, download it, upload it, wherever it is you play, finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, whether it's a 5-cent entry or a $500 entry, doesn't matter. And get all of our tools for NFL for the entirety of the month. Win again, get silver tier, win all of that again, plus a free week of another sport. So like basketball overlap with football 3 times, get all access monthly, every single tool, all the sims for every sport on the site, $550 value. And then of course, $20,000 win. What does that mean? Yeah, the beautiful custom engraved rings, spinning display case. God, they are just beautiful. Look at that. Look at them on the screen, Matt. Oh, beauties, huh? Anyway, stochastic.com/HOF. And if you want to just use our tools and check them out for yourself, the link's in the description. Click that link and you don't have to click 8 different links anymore. That consolidated everything. You can toggle from weekly to monthly. Every subscription in there, you can see every tool that's involved and get on to making great lineups with everything over at Stochastic. And of course, be sure to join us in the Discord if you haven't done so yet and you're over there. Who else a wide receiver do you want to get to that we haven't touched on? Because I think we touched on a lot with stacks already. But like, are you okay? Here's a good one. How are you differentiating Buffalo? Because this is a mess.
Yeah, kind of reminds me of Jacksonville. I did a contrarian article today and I wrote up Mac Hollins because he was popping as far as a leverage play goes. It's again, I think I got the same answer as I had when we talked about Buffalo. At this point right now, it's really hard to know what to expect from these guys. It's a new wide receivers core. Obviously, Diggs and Gabe Davis are gone. Keon Coleman is there. Matt Hollins is there. Valdez Scantling is there. Like, I think Kincaid is the safest. You know, Kincaid and Shakir are the safest. And then the rest, it's really hard to know. How do you see it?
It's gross. Coleman's the one that intrigues me the most, only because I think he's going to be the guy eventually, you know, that ends up having those big games where he pops off. But we saw him go from a team leading target share, only 5 targets, but still team leading 22.5% target share in week 1 on very little volume for Josh Allen. And then Matt, we saw him go to 1 target, which was late in the game and a meaningless one at that, in that week 2 win over Miami. They didn't need to throw a lot, but still, it just speaks to the idea that we don't know. Like we don't know what to expect out of this team right now. It's gross. And I think I'd go Coleman, but Shakir and Kincaid are perfectly fine too. That's the thing. They're fine, but they're not exciting. Here's what I'm doing. I can tell you, I'm just rotating them. I'm kind of, you know, mindlessly, I'm mindlessly just, if they're in lineups, they're in lineups at this point. I'm not going to waste my time trying to figure out who's who and who's going to do what. It's just not worth it.
I'm totally with you. And for me, like, I'm also with you in that Coleman looks like the sexiest, I guess, because we've seen all the other guys. Like, we know Shakir's solid. He's good, but like, he's not going to break a ton of slates. Like
Correct.
Mac Hollins, Valdez Scantlings, like, they're just guys. Keon Coleman might be just a guy, but he also might be Malik Neighbors. Like, we don't know yet. So I'm with you. Like, that's why on paper, I think Coleman is the guy I think has the highest ceiling.
I think so too. And with that in mind, I still would go to any of these guys. I don't love them. I'm also okay. Here's another one for you guys. I'm fine with the 2 tight end lineups. My guess is there's going to be less 2 tight end lineups as well. So like if you're going Kincaid Gesicki, Kincaid Strange, all of that is perfectly reasonable to me as well, Matt.
100%. I mean, just because there aren't that many plays we love on this slate, it's a lot of murky waters.
A ton.
And that's what this slate is.
So, like, all right, go to tight end because we still have a few minutes here. Defense doesn't matter. You play who fits, right? At tight end, are you just playing who fits or playing who fits the stack?
No, I think at tight end, I'm falling to the Kincaid trap. I like him the most. He's easy to fit. Yeah, I just struggle to see him producing like this for the rest of the season. And I do think Jacksonville keeps this a game, so I think they're throwing a little bit more than they have. Yeah, I'm still buying Kincaid, you know, at his low point, I guess. Sucks that he's going to be so popular, but it makes sense to me. So he's, for me, the guy, but I don't mind just using whoever you're stacking in there at all. I mean, that's probably the way to play it if you're multi-entering.
Yeah, it probably is. I have no problem with Kincaid, but I'm also like, if I'm throwing Kincaid in the same bucket as Shakir and Keon Coleman and just kind of going, hey, I don't really know. Then it also is like, well, why do you can pay for him. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not forcing Kincaid.
That's fair. My only counter to that would be like, if Kincaid gets 10, that might be 4 more than any other tight end, where a wide receiver, if those other guys get you 10, probably not going to be so good. So that would be the only difference for me. But I get it. Like, I don't think that there's a big difference between them on paper. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't really think there is a big differentiator between any of these guys. We're pretty much just at a point where, number one, what about her? What about Zach? What about Ertz?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned him earlier. He looks like the easiest piece to get to run back with Jayden Daniels. He's been involved. Kind of like the trusted guy, I guess. Like, he clearly hasn't had the rapport with McLaurin. For me, I would still really struggle to stack and use Jayden Daniels without McLaurin. Just because, again, kind of like Kincaid, I'm not buying through this 2-game stretch is suddenly who McLaurin's going to be for the rest of the season. Might not turn around tonight, but if I'm stacking Daniels, I presume and hope it happens tonight.
You would hope. I'm trying to see if I have any Ertz. Yeah, I don't
Maybe
really
that's a
have much
complete
Ertz.
fish take about McLaurin, and maybe he's just him and Daniels just don't have it. But I need to see more for me to conclude that.
I'm looking at it. I have about like 30% Bretton Strange, 30% Mike Gesicki, a little more than 30% Kincaid. I'm really pretty balanced on these guys. And I do have 2 tight end lineups as well.
Yeah, this could also be a very, the Bengals should score well here. And like you said earlier, on a main slate, a lot of their guys would look good. But if they don't, this could be a very low scoring slate.
Yeah. Well, I hope Cincinnati goes nuts. Appreciate you guys. That went quick.
Yeah,
That
real
went
quick.
real fast. I just got everything in right now and I was getting nervous. But we are there. Ready to go. 2 games, Monday Night Football, doubleheader. Yo, rock the avatar. Hit us up. It's Stochastic HOF when you win. We love seeing those screenshots. Absolutely love it. And thank you guys for hanging out. Shout out to Matt. Follow him at Fantasy Tips Matt on Twitter, me at Lafayette_D. And head over to stochastic.com for all these tools. We got a lot of doubleheader Monday Night Footballs, Thursday, Saturday, or Sunday, Monday, all that good stuff. So hopefully we see you guys over there in the Discord hanging out, utilizing the tools. And until next time, we'll see you back here tomorrow on the First Look Show. Ben Ross and myself, 10 a.m. Eastern time for week 4. We turn the page quick around here. Peace.